Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Kepp, co-founder and editor-in-chief of From Day One, our forum on corporate values. Welcome to today's webinar. It's about leading through uncertainty, HR's role in navigating change. And there's sure a lot of change out there. But before we get started, for today's attendees, that's you, we have some complimentary VIP tickets available for one of our virtual conferences coming up on November 12th. It's about the empowering effect of HR tech, deciding where it will make a difference. The technology boom has provided HR leaders with both opportunities and challenges. On the one hand, AI and other new tech can help match people to workforce needs, reduce bias in hiring, and produce an abundance of data. On the other hand, HR experts need to venture beyond their comfort zones to embrace all kinds of new tech platforms, choose among myriad new offerings, and embrace the limits and pitfalls of technology. So what ideas and advice can be offered by HR leaders who've taken an innovative approach to embracing the new tech? We'll find out. I'm putting a link in the chat right now to access complimentary VIP tickets for that virtual conference, which gets you access to the whole day's activities. I hope we'll see you there next month. Today, our session is about leading through uncertainty, HR's role in navigating change. Change used to come with a roadmap. Today, it shows up like a storm. It's fast, messy, and relentless. And more often than not, HR is expected to lead the charge even when the destination is unclear. In this conversation, a panel of HR executives, who you'll meet in a moment, and leadership strategists as well, will examine what it takes to guide organizations through periods of disruption, but while maintaining trust, momentum, and stability. The conversation today will address the pressures that come with constant change, including unspoken challenges like burnout and plain old ambiguity, as well as the leadership approaches that foster resilience and clarity. We'll explore practical insights for you for sustaining progress in a really rapidly shifting environment. Now, today's webinar is presented with support from Leaderology. I'll tell you a bit about them. Recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the US, Leaderology is a collective of human transformation advocates, and they're passionate about leadership. They champion and develop fearlessly authentic leaders who make a positive impact on the organization, its performance, and the world around them through their communities of effort. Now, a few quick logistical items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and it'll be available to you on demand after the event in about 24 hours. So watch out for an email with the link. That email will give you info on how you can get credit from SHRM and HRCI, the Professional Development Associations, and look out for a written account of the conversation on our website at fromdayone.com. About 45 minutes into this conversation, we'll have a Q&A session where you can submit your questions on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, but not only then, you can do them as soon as it occurs to you. So now, with all that said, let's get started and meet today's speakers. Going first will be Reema. Can you tell us just about your role, your organization, and for all of you, like, what's a challenge that's kept you up at night? It could be personal, it could be change in the workplace or the environment around you. Just a snapshot of the kinds of things that you are thinking about. Reema?
Absolutely.
Over to
Hi,
you.
everyone. My name is Reema Vaghani, and I am the VP of Learning Experience for Learning as a Service for TaskUs. TaskUs is a digital outsourcing company specializing in providing next generation customer experience, trust and safety, and AI services for high growth technology companies. We're headquartered in New Braunfels in Texas, and we partner with some of the most innovative brands to deliver solutions and expertise. We're known for our culture on employee engagement and well-being, and TaskUs emphasizes on people-first leadership and continuous innovation. I've been in my role for about 7 years across both the Philippines and the US. And before this, I used to own my training company, and I'm really, really excited to be here today. So the challenge that faces us today is how AI is going to impact us from a digital transformation perspective. And what we're doing as a leadership team to kind of help with that is part of the discussion today. So thank you, Steve, for having me.
Thank you, Reema. So you're headquartered deep in the heart of Texas, New Braunfels. That's near San Antonio, I believe.
Yes, it is. It's about 40 minutes.
Okay. Well, welcome. Chantal, would you like to go next?
Yes, I'd love to. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chantal van der Walt, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for a company called Outokumpu Stainless. And we're a global organization. We have a location in Calvert, Alabama, which is on very close to the beautiful Gulf of America. And we manufacture stainless steel. So from taking scrap raw material, mainly scrap, so it's very sustainable, melting it down, pouring it, rolling it like it's going through a pasta machine and coming out in these big coils of shiny stainless steel in different grades. I've been with the company about 2 years. At my previous company, I worked there for 23 years and also experienced an enormous amount of change there, which helped bolster my experience. Current challenges on a microeconomic level, our area is really booming from an industrial point of view. So there's a lot of hiring and stuff going on around us, which makes managing the change super critical so that we can retain our staff. And then on a macroeconomic level, balancing everything that's going on with the tariffs and how it changes from day to day, week to week, and understanding what that means for our business as well as our supply chain through Mexico has been really, really interesting. And we've just had a big change in senior leadership locally as well. So there's really been a lot going on, but excited to be here and happy to share anything that I can.
Thanks, Chantal. Andres, would you like to go next?
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name is Andres Mendoza, and I'm the head of talent and culture for BBVA in the US, HR, as we call it. BBVA is a global bank with headquarters in Spain, Madrid. We have a presence in more than 35 countries, more than 80 million customers, and 160 years of history. We are we have a presence in the US, specific in corporate investment banking. That is what I work. We used to have a bank in the south with headquarters also in Birmingham, Alabama. So Chantal, we were close there. We sold that bank in 2021 to PNC in the middle of the pandemic. It was a lot of changes internally and with internal factors and external factors. So the last 5 years has been amazing, but very challenging and confronting every day new challenges. On the thing that I think keep me awake, it's how we have been growing since we sold that part. So we have more than multiplied the number of employees by 3 in the last 3 years. How to keep culture, that is something very important for us, and that has been the anchor for during all the difficult times, the challenging changes or the uncertainty that we had. How to keep culture or enhance culture while you are having new the transformation from inside, no? With so many new joiners to the firm, and how to adapt them to the culture to keep the essence of who is BBVA in the US.
Thank you, Andres. You point out a really important element of change that doesn't always make headlines in a macro way, which is all the mergers and acquisitions and changes that people go through in the corporate world. My own experience was that I worked for a company called Time Incorporated. It became Time Warner, then AOL Time Warner, and now my retirement benefits are from AT&T. All the same job. It's kind of it's remarkable.
Yeah.
But when you're on the line, when that happens, the cultural changes can be kind of a upheaval.
We are actually
okay.
we are buying now. We sold the bank in 2021. In 2021, now if you follow the news in Europe, it's very well known operation that we're buying a big bank in Spain. So yes, it's another part of the changes. You have your plan. You're planning for the next 3-5 years, and then something like this comes and sends everything to the sky.
New leadership, new
Yeah.
culture. Tanvi, let's go to you next, and then Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Hello, everyone. My name is Tanvi Sondhi. I'm VP of Global Talent and Learning. I work with a company called Novelis. Novelis is the world leader in aluminum rolling and recycling, spread across 9 countries with over $17 billion revenue. Of course, we have quite a few challenges like most of the companies do, but the biggest challenge that I want to talk about today, which as HR we are working very strongly, is we have relooked at our operating model and our organization structure, which resulted in a certain layoffs. These layoffs did cause a lot of anxiety, survivor's guilt, uncertainty within the organization. Currently, we are in the process of implementing the new structure and dealing with the challenges that comes with it. Novelis has been known for its great culture that we have in today. But with these layoffs, with this restructuring, our culture has been impacted. So as HR, we are working very hard towards getting our culture back on track to what we have been known for in the industry. So that's all from me.
That's a lot to deal with. Thank you, Tanvi. Marissa.
Hello, thank you, Steve. I'm Marissa Waldman. I am the founder and chief excellence officer at Leaderology. We, as you mentioned at the opening, are a full service leadership development firm. And I have the privilege of, in my role, really looking across our clients throughout all industries, all different types of size organizations, public, private, and really getting a look at what is happening globally across all the different functions. So that's been sort of an honor and a privilege as part of my role. I think that for me, the biggest thing that's keeping me up at night, it actually was crystallized recently in a 2025 Edelman Trust Barometer survey that they did globally. And they talked about how while 75% of people in organizations experience discrimination, et cetera, the thing that was exciting and also a lot of pressure is that I think the number was like 69% of employees believe that they trust in their organization to fix things, to manage through these changes, more than NGOs, more than the government, more than religious institutions. They're trusting their employers to really help navigate through all that's going on in the world, all the change. And I think that as an HR professional, right, there's a tremendous amount of pressure to deliver on that belief and on that promise and to maintain the culture and to maintain the authenticity and integrity. So that kind of keeps me up at night because I know that when our clients are saying, okay, okay, Marissa, help us do that.
Yes, and it is a lot of responsibility, and it seems increasingly on HR leaders.
Yeah.
And especially a pandemic was a kind of a turning point. It felt like where then successive crises, then it's back to HR having a big role, even in establishing the rules about AI. Chantal, you said one of the most important things, and as we want to explore some principles of good leadership here, is communication. Conveying, okay, some things are happening, there's rumors, there's misinformation. What are some of the important qualities of good communication by leaders, especially HR leaders?
For me, in my experience, it's really about communicating clearly, communicating early, communicating often, and also finding different mediums for communication because people firstly absorb information in different ways and prefer to get it in different ways, but also different parts of the organization need to receive information in a different way. The way you share a change with a director level versus a blue collar level, you need to adapt the communication accordingly, but the message needs to be consistent. What I have found helpful in a blue collar environment is to have a couple of kind of champions on the floor who are very pro company, who really buy into the vision, strategy, or whatever it is, that can help dispel the rumors and put those to bed pretty quickly, rather than having the negativity bubble up from the bottom through the organization to have the opposite working in the organization that can be effective. But I can't emphasize enough the amount of importance that is in communicating early, communicating often, and being authentic. At the end of the day, we're selfish. We want to know, how does this affect me? So make sure that your message is clear about this will affect you or no, it won't affect you. And this is potentially how.
That's fascinating about having these champions on the shop floor or front lines. How do you pick those people out? Do you give HR leadership or managers of some guidance about, because you then have to trust that person with some information?
Yeah, we've over time identified the kind of qualities that we look for, and it's really also the people that other people turn to for answers. Those that have established through their own charisma, their own walking the talk or whatever it is, that people naturally flock to them for information or just support or stuff like that. And there's not many, there's only a handful, but you only need a handful to start becoming effective in that way.
Great idea. Thanks, Chantal. Andres, communicating across borders, you have to do a lot of it. How do you do the translation not only of the language but also kind of the cultural nuance?
Yes, I think that coming to Chantal points, you have to have local point of contact or local people that convert. That is not only translating, and now with the new technology, you can have the AirPods that translate the message word by word. So, but that's not maybe the message that you want to send, or it's not the way that you want to approach. And the difference, actually, even the message in Britain and US is you have to approach it differently. So we always talk and about global strategy and local implementation, no? And that local implementation is a trust on the people that are working, people that know the regulations and what is happening in each country, and to understand this, how to adapt that global strategy to the needs of each country. The same message can be received as something very positive and very negatively, no? So we work in a footprint around the whole globe, and the same message can be received culturally very different if it's not adapted and tropicalized.
All right, well, thank you. Do any of the rest of you want to touch on the whole some of the important values of communication before we move on to the next question?
Yeah. So Steve, just quickly, I would just like to add 2 points. At least the learning that I had in 6 months is more we communicate transparently and clearly, and communicating as is has worked far better than when we tried to camouflage it or try to put it nicely. Whenever we said as is, I think it worked for us more beautifully. People really understood it and we could really go forward. So the learning that I had is that whenever you're going through a change, just be direct, sharp, clear, to the point. It really works. And second is that every country has its own nuances in terms of way they adopt change and the way they receive communication. Like say, for example, in Korea, we need to give them a lot of time to ask questions. So usually, like say, if we keep 15 minutes to ask question, nobody will ask any question there. So we need to keep a longer duration when we go to that part of the world to communicate. So every country nuances, we need to be clear in terms of how are we creating opportunity for them to open up and ask questions. So I think we need to understand that and tweak the way the other 2 panelists have also stated.
Excellent points. Okay. Now, of course, we can't go too far into a conversation about change without talking about AI. So, actually, Tanvi, coming back to you, you mentioned some of the. I'm sorry, no, Reema, I wanted to ask you this first because you mentioned it. How are you handling the digital transformation in your company, not just as a tool, but also at a kind of a higher level, the larger considerations about it might change someone's job, not just help them do their job, it might be a new job.
Absolutely.
So different levels.
Yes, absolutely. So being in the space of the BPO industry, and we would have heard that AI is going to have a major impact on the operations and the workforce. There are some jobs that are going to become just the standard, and they're going to be done by AI because they're simpler. What we're doing right now is fostering a culture of learning agility. We're building a process where there's continuous education, where people learn and unlearn so that they can actually develop new future-based skills. We've built out a structured skill up program where we're upskilling our employees at all levels. We start with entry level, mid level, where we're teaching them skills of tomorrow, as well as we're focused on building AI skills within our organization to make sure that our leaders are ready for this. Our mid-level leaders are the connective tissue that takes all of the people together and helping us drive the mentoring and the other processes that will help people get better through giving them new skills. Like we have AI for managers. We also build out other skills that will really drive performance in the near future. So that's how we're doing it. And we're creating well-being programs, psychological safety environments for them where they can ask questions. These are certifications programs, so they have progression pathways to kind of go forward in their careers as well.
Sounds comprehensive. Thank you. Chantal, what's your approach in both encouraging people but also putting guardrails around things because it's both exciting and scary?
I think setting realistic expectations and not overcomplicating things. I think in the past there's been a tendency, if you overcomplicate things, you might look like you're the smartest person in the room. But I found, let's just be honest. Let's just be frank. Some of these roles are going to go away, but what are the opportunities? What does it create for you, and how can you develop? So, just yeah.
Got it. Marissa, how are you? You must be hearing this. You have many corporate partners in this field. What are you advising them? What are you hearing from them?
Oh my gosh, for us, it always comes back to fearless authenticity. As the panel has said, these mid-level leaders are the shoulders. They are truly the connective tissue for organizations. They're getting strategy from the top. They're translating it down. They have the relationships. They, in my mind, need to be protected at all costs and cherished and supported. The reason I talk about fearless authenticity all the time is show me a great leader, I'll show you someone who's self-aware, and show me a terrible leader, I'll show you someone who's not so much. And so regardless of whether we're doing executive coaching or leadership development training, whatever we're doing, we always encourage our clients to start with the opportunity for leaders to look inward and to do the work and to get clarity around who they are, what they value, what are their strengths, what are their areas of opportunity, how they like to, what their purpose is, what is their North Star. Because the example, again, that I always use is a what's the word? A palm tree, right? You have these great big tall palm trees that are rooted in the ground. And when the winds come, the tariffs, the changes, all the global uproar that we're dealing with, when those come, people that are like these palm trees that are rooted, they sway and they bend, but they don't break because they understand who they are and what they're all about. And so we always, when we're advising clients, it's get a hold of those mid-level leaders. This isn't a nice to have. This is a must have. Help them develop, help them get clarity around who they are so that they can then support the whole organization. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think in the probably in the realm of change through technology too, that can be very confusing. People can be very reactive and not, if they don't have a sense of authenticity of self, like here's what I believe in. And then how does this new technology fit into what my, abiding beliefs are?
Exactly. And I think also, the definition of fearless authenticity isn't complete without the second piece, which is the psych safety, right? So people who are fearlessly authentic leaders understand that about themselves. And this is the most important part. And create psychologically safe spaces for others to do the same. So it's not permission to show up and say it's my way or the highway or be a jerk. It's understanding who I am and using that confidence to create space for others to also show up authentically and to say, this AI stuff scares me. I feel like my job is being threatened. What does this mean? And have those authentic conversations because the vulnerability and the trust is there.
Okay, well, this is a nice segue to what I wanted to ask Tanvi about. You talked a bit in earlier conversations getting ready for this, like about some of the emotional impact that transformation has on people and restructuring, things like that. And it can range from just anxiety to more finely tuned things like survivor's guilt after a restructuring. Can you tell us like what things you've seen and how you respond to it
Yeah.
as a leader?
So when, of course, the layoffs happened, Novelis has not really laid off people. So this was like the first experience that people are going through, that there is a layoff right from top. Quite a few people have been laid off. So there was fear, there was anxiety, there was detachment, there was sadness. And as a result, all went into the survivor's guilt mode. And everyone reacted to change very differently. Some were very vocal in expressing the displeasure, and some were very silent. They weren't talking to anyone. They went into their shell. Some tried to overwork a lot to show that I'm important in the organization and I can do this and this and this. So as a result, everyone was showing different emotions. So there was no one size fits all that we could do as an organization or as a leader. So the toughest job was being a people leader, people who had large teams or the middle management that we have been talking about. I think they had the toughest job to understand each individual and act and react accordingly to that particular individual. If person is showing silent resistance, then how do I make person open up? How do I make person talk a little more? So I think people had to have different ways to do it. At an organization level, we focused a lot on getting our top team, the middle team together, and first ensuring that they are stress-free, first ensuring that they are able to cope up with change so that they can manage their teams better. So we had regular engagement with the top team and the middle team, and we call them top 175. So we used to engage with them regularly and having a lot of conversation and creating a lot of transparency for them to lead the change. So our entire focus was, what do you need to lead the change? You know your teams better. What can we do for you as an organization? And we held a lot of focus group, and we are still continuing a lot of listening within the organization. So one thing that we have done is listening has been our core mantra that we had adopted. Second was transparency and communication that we had really adopted to say that these are the two tools that we will take to really drive this change within the organization. But it's not been an easy journey, because with all these emotions, you have to operate in a new model. You have to work with a new boss. You have to work with a new team.
Yeah.
You have to generate results. And then there is a burnout. So it's been a tough phase for everyone within the organization. But we had defined our cultural beliefs way back, 5 years back, which was about be open, build trust, say anything, and be authentic. I think these cultural beliefs were our binding force in this journey and guiding us to say, are we doing this right? And wherever we did this right, I think we managed change better. In any pockets we were not able to follow these cultural beliefs is where we struggled with change. So this guiding light helped us to say, are we being open? Are we being authentic? Are we allowing people to say anything? How are we building trust? So whenever we followed our cultural beliefs, I think we were on track. But wherever we failed to comply to it or do it is where we started struggling. So series of emotion and still.
Yes. Well, it's everyone responds differently, and if you're able to acknowledge that, that seems to help a lot. Chantal, what's been your experience? The company's gone through changes, and
I think Tanvi made a great point about trust, and one of the ways that I've seen in the past trust being broken, and you really struggle to get that back, is actually not getting back to the people, not being that voice that's listening. And when they bring up something, don't sweep it under the rug. Somehow, somewhere, you need to respond, even if the answer is not what they're looking for, but closing that loop and circling back to me is critical. I know that in our current organization, we're really looking at the development, stronger development of that middle management level, because they really are, like Marissa said, they're getting squashed from the top, they're getting pushed up from the bottom, they're really getting it from all ends. And Exactly, and you can't overemphasize the need to develop those leaders, many of which have been technical professionals in the past and been promoted because of their proficiency rather than their leadership experience, acumen, or even desire, for that matter. And we need to do more to bolster that level. A lot of organizations have tried to cut out that level, which is the worst thing that you could do. But bolstering that level, but closing that communication loop is the one thing that keeps the trust going. Just ignoring it and hoping it's going to go away is just a dreadful mistake.
Can
I just add one piece to
absolutely, yes.
To Chantal's point, the worst thing anybody can do, we've been saying it, is to navigate, right? The resistance. You need to address the resistance. You need to go right into it. And these mid-level leaders are trying to navigate the change curve themselves, as well as bring their people along. And I think that often they've been peers to this group before they were promoted. And so they're feeling protective, they're feeling maybe imposter syndrome. And one of the things we always talk about, the biggest mistake a leader can make during this change is what we call the Tarzan swing, right? They have gone through the change, and now that they're to the other side, because they've heard about the change perhaps before their people, they want to make it easy. They care. So they want to swing a vine across that curve and say, grab hold. I've already done the hard work. It's safe over here. Grab hold and just swing across. And that's a mistake. It comes from a good place, but they have to these mid-level leaders need to be developed so they understand, let the people go through the change. But as the leader, you can make that curve tighter and shorter and less painful through the communication, through the addressing these things, and guide them through the change rather than sort of say, oh, it's fine, let's go, we're good, everything's fine. I already checked it out. So.
And also,
skip ahead. Go ahead. Yes, in fact, I'd like to hear from all of you that would like to speak on the middle manager crisis. All of you were advocates for middle managers, and they've sort of been, a lot of times they've been cut in tough economic times. Or Tanvi, if you want to pick up on that and run with it, please do.
Yeah, so just to the Marissa's point and Chantal's point, initially when we started our restructuring, we of course involved very few people into it and we started our whole process. But more we started engaging with the middle management, more we started involving them and not informing them, I think is where our change journey shifted. Because more we involve, our change was better. Whenever we were informing, we were struggling. So I think that is a transition that we also learned in the due course. But I think that learning really changed the course in the way we do. So our phase one was more difficult. Our phase two was fairly better because we involved them and not just informed.
Reema, do you have a thought on that? I believe you did have some thoughts on the neglected middle manager.
Yeah, so that's one area that Taskas has been really focused on, where we've actually built a lot of two ways to approach it. We're doing the frontline education that most organizations do, which is, we're building the leadership development, the ladders, making sure they build on their skills. But the other part that we're really doing more of is the experience. We're giving them the opportunity to be part of this as architects of the change rather than the responders to the change, by giving them opportunities to have those team meetings, to be part of the conversation that's happening for the change. And that's really helping our workforce become more stable. And more importantly, because we know that the knowledge preservation is so important, because churn in this scenario of change is very disruptive, because there are people who know so much about our clients, so much about the work that we do. We need the middle managers to come in and be part of that construction of the change that we're trying to bring in. And we do that not just with education, but with the experiences we're building in, the mentorship programs that we have. Mentor Us, which is a program we run across all levels. So our CEO mentors people, so do all our C-level. And that has really driven some of our first line leaders or middle managers to talk to and ask questions of our C-level to get a better understanding and therefore become the catalyst rather than the responders to change. So Steve, that's how we're doing it.
Okay. One other thought I had is, what happens to middle managers when a change comes down from on high, and the middle manager, it doesn't like it because it's a difficult change, or maybe doesn't like it and doesn't agree with it? How do they then carry on their job in dealing with subordinates, so to speak? If they say that they don't agree with it, they look, like they're not influential, or they just, look subversive. So, have you ever, had to counsel people on that, people caught in the middle, and how they talk about it?
Absolutely. So we start with anticipation before reaction, right? We anticipate that these situations are going to happen. We kind of build our processes around, hey, how do we make sure that the middle management, if they agree, that's easier, right? They can get on the bus much easier. If they disagree, we kind of give them the opportunity to first talk to us about it, make sure that they understand it. Sometimes it's just not knowing what's happening that causes them to feel the anxiety or potentially thinking that they don't agree. Once they understand the process, they understand the logic behind some of those things, they're like, okay, now I see it. You may not agree with it personally, but we've been able to make that transition into, hey, now that you've understood why it's happening, can you at least explain the why? And we make them do it. Like, that's the experience part I was talking about. We give them opportunities where they're meeting with some of our leaders and actually doing it with them and building that experience. So when they go talk to their teams, they're much better equipped to deal with some of the anxiety that the people are going to feel.
I just want to add one thing. If
Yes.
people are resisting, you want this to be vocal, right? That means that there's trust and they're speaking. You don't want them to be subversive. So first, it's a mindset. If you're hearing mid-level leaders who are objecting and who are unhappy, the response is thank you. Thank you. This is good. Let's talk about this. Not this is the way it is. Disagree, commit, get over yourself. So as Reema was saying, this is part of their development. They're being brought up to look bigger, to understand the bigger strategy, to look beyond just their little silo or their little part of the organization. So I always think when someone is actively vocally saying, I don't know, you say, yes, talk to me, this is good, rather than you find out later that they shook their head yes and then went and said to their team, well, I don't agree, this is stupid, but this is what we're going to be doing. So again, it sets it from a trust, and then healthy conflict leads to commitment, leads to, all the high performing teams that we want.
I think that connecting to that, I think that the most important part is that for the middle management to feel that they are supported, that they may not agree with this, and giving those spaces that Marissa was saying is quite important for them to vocalize this before they have to communicate this, but to vocalize and understand, and even if they disagree, leave their space for them to share that, but then to feel supported by the team, to be supported to receive the feedback after the event that had happened or the communication that happened, or even to feel supported with somebody from the management there when they have to communicate that. It's not this person. It's a bigger thing. No? It's not this middle management that is making the decision. It's the organization that is putting this on him, and he will try to do his best. But feel supported, I think, is key for the middle management to transfer this in the best way to the employees or to their teams, but also for that middle management to feel, okay, I had to do this, but I was not alone. I was walked by my manager, by my team, my company, and we are all on this. Is I was not thrown under the bus, and I have to deal with this. No, so I think that support part, connecting with communication, that in this is key, and I think that we have been repeating this in each one of the questions. Communication, the transparent communication, the direct communication is key, but the support part is something that has to be there, has to be for sure part of the planning.
I have a, Andres, I was going to go to you with the next question, so maybe I'll just follow on quickly here. How do you deal with many countries and in financial technology, and the laws are different. Compliance is not a fun game, but if you don't comply, you get into trouble. So how do you, when you're rolling out new programs and changes, how do you account for the fact that it's often different in every country? And some
Yeah.
people may think, well, why can't we do it the way they're doing it in Spain?
Not only we are in a lot of countries, so we are in one of the most regulated industries in the world. So the financial industry, because it has to, it's one of the most regulated. So I think that being agile, it's one of the key things. So agility is in this environment, it's key. It's a mindset. It's not a tool. It's something that you need. No, it's something that you need to adapt the local needs to the global needs, to the local reality. So having that, as I was saying, having those global strategy, local needs, have those local teams that are empowered to push back on messages, to understand that each one of those countries are different, that you have key experts in one of those locations that has the possibility and the support, connected to my point, to my prior point, that they have to support and push back, that they have the trust, that they know what they're doing and how to adapt that. And we in the industry, even the way we pay, the way we do everything, it's different. We have to adapt it to each country that we have, and the way that we pay bonuses, the way that we control home office attendance is different in Spain. There are some data restrictions that we do not have in the US, or quite often different. So being agile is one. The other one, I think, is empowered and trust team. It's important. It's quite important to each one of those local teams are the owners of their process. No? So although we are all part of this global entity, each one of those local owners are empowered and trusted. And then, as I say, over communicating. See, communications is we need communication to stabilize chaos, not to work under these changing conditions. So and finally, the most important one for me is anchored to trust, to your culture, to your values. So being ethic, being having a team that you know that you can trust, that is based on culture, that is based on the corporate values, is something that is quite important. And BBA, I think the word that I repeat the most, and it's not because if it's my title, is culture. No, I welcome everybody every other week on the company. I talk about culture because that at the end is the anchor to all the other things, are component to maintaining the culture, on the ethic, on the regulatory, on the, of course, the profitability, and then the company, the culture company.
Well, thank you, Andres. Tanvi, Chantal, would either of you like to add to that in dealing with the different compliance and cultural issues and across borders?
I think the importance is that you recognize that they are there, firstly, and you do need to adjust accordingly. In Germany, you've got to work with a whole lot of labor unions and things like that before you can do most things. And for us in the United States, in certain parts of the United States, especially, that's a very unfamiliar space to be. So recognize them and make sure that the people who are dealing with it are aware of the differences, so that especially from a compliance and a litigation point of view, that you are covered. Make sure that they have the knowledge that is necessary.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Go.
No, I'm
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Tanvi, did you say you wanted to? No. Okay. Okay. Well, you know what? We have so many questions, so I think it's that time. If anyone wants to add questions, we can take them in real time. There's a bunch, like 20 of them. One thing that someone asked is, what we all say are the early indicators that a workforce is struggling to adapt to constant change? What are some signs that pop up that might be red flags? Anyone want to volunteer?
I can. So one couple of red flags that we had seen is that one is that the work doesn't progress. So work itself suffers is the biggest thing. That is the biggest sign that you can see that, it is impacting your numbers, or it is impacting whatever work that they are doing. That is the biggest sign that we see that it is coming in. Second, we see that people start being absent at work. People don't attend the engagement events. People back off from any uh, open sessions or feedback sessions that we are doing in. And that's what I call the silent resistance. So that's the
Withdraw.
really show. They just withdraw. And that's how you realize, and there are different teams, and there could be two people in one team behaving this way. So sometimes it's very difficult to know, because team is maybe performing very well, just two people are not performing. So sometimes it's very difficult to really deep dive and understand that where is really the issue and who's really struggling and how you need to work with them. If the team itself is not performing, then we of course need to work with that manager or a leader to say that how do we uh, get this going. But immediate reaction is the behavior, and the way they show up in any of the events is the clear indication that they are not comfortable with the change.
Mhm. Okay. Here's another one. Yeah, I think Marissa, was you who mentioned psychologically safe environments, and what does that look like? One of our audience members asks, when things are changing a lot. What's psychologically, when things are stable, I guess psychologically safe is a little easier to pull off. Marissa, would you like to follow on that?
I think it comes back to the leadership. When the leadership is vulnerable, when the leadership is authentic and transparent, you're able to maintain a psychologically safe culture. Leaders saying, "How am I doing? Give me the feedback. How is this going?" And then not reacting. I've seen I've seen leaders say, give me the feedback. And then the mid-management said, it feels like a fear-based culture. And the CEO slammed his fist on the table and said, "Who said that?" I thought it was funny because I was like, wow, you are the classic example of terrible leadership. But that vulnerability, showing up authentic and inviting the feedback is how you continue to create a psychologically safe and maintain a psychologically safe culture when when the wind is blowing, right? And then
Steve,
Mhm.
and I think there, so be, the part of not being okay is okay, to giving the room to the managers. That not being okay doesn't mean that you are a weak manager, that you don't have what is needed to take to the next level. We are overwhelmed at one moment of our career. That doesn't mean that we don't have what it takes to take to the next level. That means that we're human and that we take things personally and professional, and that we care about what we do. So not being okay, and here HR is something that we have a responsibility of for those that are not brave enough to raise their hand, to spot it and to give them the channels and the communication, the space to share when they are not okay. Maybe that's actually is when they needed us the most, not when they are thriving, but when they truly need our tools and when they need to be listening and to receive the coaching and the feedback or the mentoring. So an organization that is okay not to be okay, it's something that employee will stay and will value for sure.
Mhm.
I think to add to that, when you look at psychological safety, I think transparent and consistent communication is key. There are times when you will not have an answer as a leader. Being able to be vulnerable and being able to communicate, yes, I don't know today, but I will get you more information about that.
Yep.
Regular and honest updates. That's a non-negotiable, and that helps build the psychological safety, because it helps people realize that no, as a leader also you may not have all the answers, but you're willing to have the conversation. It's open. The door is always open. You can come in and ask for help. And the other piece is the employee assistance programs, and what are we doing in that space to build wellness and allow people to feel a certain way, and then how are we helping them develop as leaders from an emotional intelligence perspective as well.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you, Reema. Now, Patricia in the audience asked something we touched on earlier, but she put a little sharper point on it than I did. As HR professionals, it's part of our jobs to support our leaders in managing change, ensuring we're supportive and compliant. But how do you take care of your own uncertainty? How do you advocate for the team and yourself when maybe your insights, things are ambiguous or, your insights are not being valued? Advocating for oneself, or how can a leader reframe a little bit when things are crazy? Thoughts?
Yeah,
Marissa?
I think first of all, we
Nice.
are employees. We are not HR employees. Well, the first part is we are part of the firm, no, and we need that support too. We don't have an HR maybe sometimes for HR, but we should. And the leaders within the HR are those that need to have that. So I start all my conversation with my teams is how are you first, because they need to have that. So we need to have internal in HR that somebody that takes care of us and listen to that and is taking care of the HR team. That is the first line of defense there. But I think it's quite important as leaders inside of HR to consider that and to be always aware that our teams are the ones that are in the first line, are the ones that are taking on that burden. Then they need to transfer that they are not be alone and to be there to feel that support within the team. And then as the head of HR, that your CEO support that is part of this, that we are not a support function anymore. We are not just there. We are managing the capital, the human capital of the firm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a
Go ahead.
point.
Sorry, if I could add to that, I think, part of the question was kind of if we don't agree with what is going on or something like that, if that's how I understood it. I think when HR is close to the business as they should be, um, accepting what is coming is easier because when you're closer to the business, it's easier to understand and appreciate why things are happening. When HR is not that trusted partner and going through it each step of the way and coming in the latter part or during rather than from the beginning, and to sort out, okay, now you need to do the change management part. That is harder. But I think if you have that relationship with the business, and this is something that I tell my team over and over, you've got to have that trusted relationship with the business, because then you will understand better where they are coming from and appreciate better why the company needs to maybe do what it needs to do, and not just think about it from the people point of view.
And
That's
to
a point.
Chantal's point, the phrase "physician heal thyself" is critical. The HR folks, we're taking care of everybody all the time. And as an HR leader, if you feel like you are not able to advocate for yourself, if you feel like you aren't able to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you attend to others, this may not be the right place for you. And I don't mean to sound flippant. I mean, I understand we all have expenses and it's a tough market. But if you are not respected by the business and you are not able to advocate for yourself, maybe you are needing to exit.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Here's another question that's interesting, which is how do you prevent attrition among high potential employees amid uncertainty? In other words, if they're in demand and things are kind of ambiguous and weird, they could go somewhere else. But so what do you tell those people? Is there any way to maybe, as Chantal was saying, bring them closer to the business? Like, here's why the things are happening that are happening, and you're part of it.
I think, sorry, go ahead, Chantal.
No, you go ahead, Reema.
Okay, so from my perspective, I think whenever we look at high potentials, I think them knowing that they're part of the catalyst that we're looking at, and I think Chantal said that really early on in the call, where they had trusted people to kind of do some of be part of the change. I think that's one of the big pieces. Also, reevaluating what is the employee value proposition through this change, right? Really evaluating a clarity of what's the purpose, what are we trying to do, and helping those people see that as part of the communication that you're doing, and you're giving them that differentiation in terms of that process, yet you're doing it with fairness and equity across the workforce that you have. Being able to provide people the opportunity to see what's in it for them is one of the ways that I've seen that has really helped me keep high potentials on my team at least.
Thank you, Reema. Here's one from, I think we have room for like one more question and then maybe but
I'll just quickly add to that point what Reema said.
yes.
Just 30 seconds. One thing that we did as an organization was that we had identified a list of talent pool. We re-validated the list of talent pool basis the new structure. And then we communicated to everybody, all the people. We had a talent communication series. So we had a proper formal session with all the talent to say that they are important and how we are invested in them and how we see them growing. So we did a formal talent communication across the organization, across the levels to say that you're important and we want you to stay.
Sounds wise. All right. Iris asks in the audience, how do you create room for coaching to both receive and give feedback to grow your leadership skills? And when she says, how do you create room? What's implicit there probably is that when things are kind of chaotic and somebody says, I want to coach, it's like, is that, how do you make sure that that's still important even when there's a lot of tumult going on? Marissa, it's probably something you see a lot.
I think that people need to understand, again, back to the mid-level leaders, but all leaders, development isn't a perk. It's oxygen, right? These people you're leaning on to lead the organization through everything. They need the support. If you look at professional athletes, they don't make it to a certain level and say, I'm good now, I don't need a coach. That's the higher they go, the more professional they become. They have running coaches, throwing coaches, nutrition coaches, etc. And so coaching is not in these high stress situations a nice to have. It truly is a must have. They need a safe space to discuss strategy, to look at different challenges, and to really have time with themselves. Really, the coach doesn't bring the answers, the coach brings the questions. And then the leader is able to drive it themselves. So I think it's critical to success, obviously.
So like we have time for like a kind of a lightning round, and some people have mentioned the word trust. So I think that would be an interesting thing. In times of change, how do you build trust? Could I go to each of you for just some advice for the leaders in the audience about how to do that in times when maybe people don't trust what's happening or the direction or some aspect? Chantal?
I just think something that has stuck with me since you first mentioned it last week, Marissa, is that authenticity. And to me, that's the only way to do it. Just be authentic, be yourself. But you've got to believe it in yourself. It's very hard to expect people to trust you if you're not believing it yourself. And if you can't believe it yourself, just like Marissa said, you've got to decide whether or not it's a place for you.
I think
Andre?
I think that's key, and being vulnerable there, not to be open and to see that you are there. No, there is that vulnerability. I think that helps to build that trust. Being empathetic, that is important to put in the shoes of the others, and that even if you when you disagree, to connect what is the common point of view between two of us, so that we can agree on something and then disagree, of course, but build that you can take their side and understand, although ultimately there is a different opinion. So I think it's key.
Okay, we have about 1 minute left from each of you. Tanvi, Reema, Marissa, make it like a bumper sticker.
So build trust in our organization is defined as I genuinely care for our people, see diverse perspective and recognize contribution. So we focus a lot on transparent communication, listening, and recognition.
Okay, great. Reema?
I think for me, trust is both a part of the credibility that you have with the teams that you work through, because this is not the first time they're meeting you, right? Change is not the first time they meet you. So how much credibility you have, and how do you make sure that you're being vulnerable, authentic throughout those conversations will probably define how much they trust you.
Thank you, Reema. Marissa, quick thought?
Act in alignment with your purpose and principles and create room for others to do the same.
Perfect. thank you all, each and every one of you. Really appreciate your being here. They were very candid and useful insights. Thanks also to Leaderology for their support and all of you who participated today. Now, before you all sign off, I'm going to put the link again in the chat to give you complimentary VIP tickets for our virtual conference coming up November 12th. It's about the empowering effect of HR tech, deciding where it'll make a difference. So on behalf of all my colleagues at From Day One, thanks for participating and stay well. Bye for now. Hope to see you
Thank
again soon.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.